further discussion? Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of thoughts I want to share, and I'll try to be brief. I think as we look at the Ag Bill, the amendments that were brought up, I think highlight some very valid points. And I think that at the end of the day, there are many of us that wish we had a different target than we do. But I think it's also important for us to remember that as we look at what everyone likes to talk about, the surplus. And yet, if we're realistic, we also recognize that the existing tails of the budget that will be in place, which are the sort of the parameters in which the current Senate bill is following, actually eats up that surplus in and of itself. You have the current tails out of the budget that will end on June 30th of this year carries tails in excess of $2 billion. Even if we add not a single dollar to the budget, that's how much more money the state of Minnesota is going to spend as a result of the tails. And now you can continue to spend like that if you decide you're going to continue to tax people like that. And we talk about the farm economy, and you're right, there are challenges on the farm right now. But do they need a 20-cent a gallon gas tax increase? Do they need the other tax increases that will be required if the other budgets are adopted? And the reality of it is they don't. And so we have to be realistic about that. And at the end of the day, we all know how the budget process works, and I hope that there will be some monies to address the issues that have been talked about here, including broadband. You know, I think as far as the ag language as it relates to pasture that the MPCA is concerned about, the language does not release anyone from a manure management plan. It never has, it never will. I think, however, there's concerns that the agency has drawn pastures that are specifically excluded under current law into the feedlot rules and requirements. And I believe they have done so improperly. And unfortunately, too many times we can't have a meaningful discussion about that until we in the legislature get a little obstinate about that. And, you know, I hate to be obstinate, but I think I can do it at the end of the day. And as relates to housing, I'm just simply going to state this. There are a lot of these programs, whether we're talking homework starts at home or, yes, there are a lot of good things that are out there. The thing that has been challenging for me, and we've had a lot of disappointment expressed today. Well, let me express some of my disappointment. 2 years ago, I started to talk about what I find to be frustrating, that as we talk about affordable workforce housing, we have gotten to a point where our affordable workforce housing really isn't affordable for our workforce. And I've complained about that for 2 years. And I've looked at the industry for 2 years. And has anybody brought forth any real meaningful solutions? The actuality of it is that we continue to ask for more money to do the same thing we have done that, quite frankly, has proven to be problematic. At the end of the day, how much money is enough? I know that the other body included $20-some million extra, and they were told that's not enough. The reality of it is there's never going to be enough to spend all the money that some of you folks want to spend. And at the end of the day, we have to find ways to do more efficiently, with a lesser amount of money. It doesn't mean at times there can't be more money spent. It also means that we have to look at our manufactured housing and recognize that as the costs of some of these other units continue to rise, that offers to us some opportunities that quite frankly are available, and that quite frankly some of many in our workforce and many of our folks at the lower income stream need if they ever are to enjoy the benefits of home ownership. It's been said that our bill today will actually decrease home ownership. Well, it doesn't really have to. Yes, you know, I know the department likes the tax-free bonds because they get a cut of the money to help finance themselves. But at the end of the day, there are other taxable bonds that can be issued to accomplish the same thing. And actually, we believe that within this budget, there's an opportunity to release enough funds to produce another 5 or 100 new units or 800 units in rehab that otherwise wouldn't have been available. Yeah, there are a lot of needs out there. There's no question about that. There are needs in the metro area. There are needs in the rural area. But you know, folks, the time that is over that we can just say, let's just do the same old thing and throw more money at it. Because we can't afford that. And Senator Dziedzic made the comment about how, you know, while we have we have the metro, we have the rural, yet we are all connected. You know, when the housing market crashed in the metro area so substantially a few years ago, and the economy was tough, it was a vibrant rural economy that helped keep the state somewhat stabilized at that point in time. And even then, we encountered budget problems. And now we have difficulties on the farm. Fortunately, there are good job opportunities. There are a lot of job opportunities available in the metro area, and we have to rely on that economy to help bring about some stability to the state's economy. But this idea that we can always charge everybody more and not eventually negatively impact the economy is just plain and simply wrong. It has been said recently that on a national basis, some of the high tax states are the ones that are quite frankly doing the worst right now in this economy. Well, look at where we fall in some of the tax situations. Quite frankly, people, they're talking about us. And so at the end of the day, yeah, I hope we have a little additional money for some of these projects, because there are a lot of worthwhile projects here that we haven't been able to cover. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the, excuse me, for the work that you've done. I know that you've had a challenging task in front of you to come up with a budget that, you know, can respond to needs and yet deal with the budgetary restraints that are present. And hopefully, as time goes on and we make progress, we'll all be able to have a budget that at the end of the day we can support. But certainly at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I obviously intend to vote for your budget, and hopefully we can go forward from here and address as many concerns as we can in the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Weber. Any further discussion, members? Senator Dziedzic?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Weber, we do agree on a lot of stuff, and I do agree with you when you talk about the affordability of housing, because I have said for years, affordable to who? Because in my neighborhood, there are rents that are what they consider affordable, or they're marketed as market rate. They are through the roof, and I don't know how your average person can afford them. So I think we agreed that we do agree with there, and I think we do need to keep looking at how do we make this work. And I think this is a statewide crisis. It isn't just a metro issue, it is a statewide issue. There might be different solutions across the state, but I think it is a statewide issue, and I do think we need all hands on deck. And I am glad that there's people in this room, and including industry and advocates, that we need to continue working on that, because I think the housing issue, where I might disagree with you, is I think that while our economy is clearly tightening in Minnesota and across the state, I think we are still doing better than a lot of other states. But part of the issue that is slowing down our economy is the shortage of workers, and part of that is a shortage of housing or affordable housing. And so I think that is kind of a core. It impacts, if you don't have a place to go home and sleep, and you don't have a consistent place to go home and sleep, or you're always worried about when I'm going to be kicked out, how does your kid learn? And I don't need to repeat all this with you, because I think we all agree that, homework starts at home, and kids do better when they have a stable home. And so I think we need to keep working on this. And it is, I also agree with you, and I have told people that we don't have a surplus. If you look into the details, we don't have a surplus. And so, but I think there are priorities, and I think we need to literally, I know this was a tough budget, but I think we need to literally keep looking at, how do we help the average person who is looking for a job and looking for a place to live, and literally can't find, they can find a job, but there's no housing in that area. So then they can't take that job. So I think this is, housing gets to the core, and I think we need to just keep working on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dziedzic. Members, anybody else have any discussion? And I'm asking because I'll close with a few comments, but I don't want to cut anybody else off if there's others that want to comment. No further comments. So members, I know we're over time here, so I'll be brief, but certainly we heard some hand wringing, but members, I want to focus on some pretty positive highlights of this bill as well. Balancing the budget is always a tough thing to do. Senator Weber, I think, spoke well about the need to get outside the box and think about more affordable ways to actually provide affordable housing. We can't continue on this paradigm of new housing costs of $250,000, $300,000, $400,000 a unit. It's just simply affordable is not affordable the way we're going about this. And so preserving manufactured homes and offering modular home opportunities in our manufactured home park, which is also part of this bill. We're bringing some new creative ways to help bring more affordable options to the workforce and to the people that want to have home ownership. And so think about those opportunities and those different ways of thinking about providing some home ownership in our communities and across the state, because when the cost is hundreds of thousands of dollars a unit, the sky is not the limit, because we don't have a printing press. We aren't going to be able to keep affording those kind of costly projects. And so if we've got better, more efficient ways to do it, or at least be part of the solution, this budget, this proposal starts looking at those other ways. And hopefully it challenges those in communities to also start looking at different ways than what we've always done in the past, because what we've done in the past, we do know for certain, is not getting us where we need to go anytime fast. And so by the admission of the testimony we keep hearing over and over, one has to acknowledge that if we keep doing what we've done, we'll never get where we need to go. And so that is my comments on the housing part of this. Keep an open mind as we try to bring new ways, new opportunities, and help push the envelope to try to bring more housing units to the communities that are in such great need. And nothing seems to be done about driving down the cost of building these housing units, and we need to get our arms around that. With broadband members, $30 million is not everything I wish we could have, but I think there's great support for this and additional dollars if they show up. The other thing I want to remind you is this is $30 million for next year. That leaves an opportunity for the following supplemental year to be a budget if we don't end up with anything more at the end of the year. That's $5 million away from what the governor's request for the first year would be. And so I think it's a good starting point. We can build off of there, and we can continue to try to support this in the next year's budget if there happens to be enough funds to fund a second year. And so this is a strong commitment under the budgets we have to make rural broadband well funded for the next year. And certainly I will continue to try to advocate for ways and try to find, working with other senators and legislators, to make sure this priority can continue to be funded, because we know the many good things it's done in rural communities, and it really is modern day electricity for our rural communities and job development. Looking at the ag side of things, folks, there's a lot of negative outlooks in agriculture. Mental health, which is being carried in another bill, and so don't say this too loud, but the finance chair has actually given us just a little bit of a target above zero, because she's carrying it in Senate File 1, some additional funds for the mental health, as well as some other money for bridges potentially. And so that is actually going to give our zero target a slight increase for those important issues. And so I want to highlight that because we have not forgot about the mental health. We know how important it is. Farmers are struggling out there, and we want to be a resource, and we want to be there to help them. We've got some great innovative ways to help our dairy farmers here. We've heard from them as probably the one sector that's struggling even harder and worse than most of the others. But folks, if we can help them innovate with technology and modernize their facilities with robots, what a great thing if Minnesota could be at the forefront of modernization and technology, and our small farmers are using robots to milk to cut down on their labor cost and their labor commitment to their farm. And we can be there in the forefront to lead the way on that type of technology. Also helping them with assistance one time to get into the dairy margin program so they have a safety net to make it through the next year. And so that $5 million is something we need to brag about. We need to push hard for our dairy farmers and keep that sector of our ag economy strong and keep them here and try to stop the hemorrhaging and help them have a future to look forward to with a reason by efficiency that they can compete and they can survive long term. And we've also got funding for the biofuels. We've put $2.5 million in. We've tried to put it in the base so we give some certainty to the companies that are looking at coming here, that are here ready to expand and want some certainty. Folks, this is the next generation. This is the new ethanol opportunities, the reason we have the Agri Fund primarily in the first place. And so we've tried to make a good commitment to them. And we've also had an interesting project with the soybean growers and the crushing up in the northwest Minnesota, new opportunities for value-added testing and markets. And we would have $5 million to help advance that project and help our farmers, crop farmers, those that raise soybeans. And those that raise soybeans typically raise corn and other crops as well. And if we can help them develop more market and value-added opportunities, coupled with a slight increase to AURI, who helps develop the products and the markets, we need to be looking at the positive things in this bill. And even with a tight budget, with a zero target, we've been able to, I think, come out with some real helpful items for our farmers and our ag economy in rural Minnesota. And we need to be bold about that and not be bashful and pursue those projects, because we can actually be a strong partner and a strong force to help assist rural Minnesota and farmers get through these tough economic times. And so with that, members, I would urge your support of this budget as we go forward. Certainly, I'm open to finding any ways to improve it. Thank you, Senator Eakin, for bringing forward the one amendment that changed the industrial hemp. If we can make those positive changes, let's work together and get it done. So with that, no further discussion. The chair will take the chair will vote on the final bill. So to Senate File 2226 as amended, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Motion prevails.